I guess we'll move on to the next thing. I have two things. One is where did I put okay. I'll mention this one thing and then we'll get into another negative thing I had.
Okay.
All right. This needs to be brought up. It needs to be brought up. Batman talks about how he's been Batman for 2 years now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If he's been around as Batman for 2 years, this would be year 3, not year 2.
Did they call it year 2?
I swear, I think I remember him saying he's been Batman for 2 years, but he's writing in a journal year 2.
I didn't notice that. Yeah.
But I'm just
he actively
year 3.
Yeah, what I know he says is 2 years of this or something along those lines, like doing this for 2 years.
Yeah.
You're correct that this is year 3. I don't remember him. Yeah, you might be right, but
I think in Notebook he writes like year 2. And I'm just like, this isn't year 2, this is year 3 then.
Unless it's like the end of year 2, which would be a very charitable way to look at it by me. But yeah, yes. You're right that
I'm not
if
just
he
saying
completed
this
2 years,
fact.
it's year 3. Yeah.
Yes. It also bothers me whenever like I watch a TV show and they say something happened 7 years ago, which would have been during season 1. I'm like, no, wouldn't it have been 6 years ago? Because you wouldn't have count the first one as year 1 or whatever. Or whatever. Like in season 7 of Arrow, they'll say something happened 7 years ago. I'm like, no, that had been 6 years ago. You're just counting the seasons. But
yeah.
It's just, I'm not just saying that as an angry fan. I'm just saying that these are facts.
Yeah, you just gotta say it because it's true.
All right, let's talk about the opening scene, which to me was a rough start. Like, is this how the whole movie's going to be? Oh God.
Mm-hmm.
The opening scene, which is we see Riddler's point of view of the mayor through the window with Ave Marie playing the whole time, which I think they had in, I don't remember, I think in Gotham that was used as the song was used as a plot point for Fish Mooney to capture Falcone, but I don't 100% remember. But we have it where they're playing Ave Marie, and we spend so much time looking through Riddler's point of view. It's like they were like, all right, guys, we got the rights to the song. We're going to play that whole damn song, and we're going to listen to it all. I'm just like, guys, come on. And just like, what did that scene really serve? What did that moment of spending all that time looking through Riddler's POV accomplish? If anything, what would have been more, I guess, of a surprising or shocking entrance would have been if we started in the mayor's apartment and that's where we first see Riddler. But any kind of shock of like Riddler being there is already gone away because we've spent so much time looking through his point of view. I thought that, again, that is a scene that could have easily been cut. You cut stuff like this, you cut 20 minutes from the movie. So to me, that opening, that perfectly says so many the pacing issues with this movie. So what'd you think about not the murder of the mayor, but Riddler's POV with Ave Marie playing?
You know, it's you kind of got me here because you know what? I barely remember this, and when I rewatched this movie, you know what I did? I was like, man, I really want to watch this again. And without thinking, I fast forwarded to the tram scene where that was the start of the movie to me. I think it's a long beginning. The best part, I thought the Riddler was like genuinely scary reveal in that in his apartment. Like,
but imagine how much scary it would have been if you hadn't had all that buildup wasted.
Yeah, and I actually agree with that now that you say it completely. That just like, whoa, there's a man in there. Like, that would have just, like, completely uninitiated, like, that's the first thing that hits you in this movie. Would have been great.
He's going to be in that apartment. Like, I knew exactly when he was going to pop up. So
yeah, I actually agree. That would have been stronger. I really don't feel like to me, the tram scene feels like kind of the prelude. Like it feels like a good opener. And then when the Nirvana song kicks in, that's the movie. You're in it.
That could have been like a cooler opening. Like if it had opened with the tram scene, then we cut to the mayor getting murdered. Then we cut to the opening with, Bruce. I think he goes back to the Batcave afterwards, but if you shuffle that around, it could have been a much more like attention grabber. Yeah. That tram scene was awesome. That was might have been my favorite action scene in the movie.
Yeah, really. It was great.
Yes. So this one I'm a little struggling on what to think about, if it's a positive or negative. It's the opening narration we have of Batman narrating.
Okay.
Because on one hand, this movie took a lot from The Long Halloween and Batman Year One, two of my favorite comics. And Batman's narration is prevalent throughout that movie. And I appreciate, like, oh, I see where he's getting that from. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. I think some of the lines might have been lifted from the comics themselves. But I don't know. Part of me is like, it felt a little corny seeing it in live action. I don't. For me, like kind of voiceover narration for that, for me, has really only worked with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I just, on one hand, I'm like, I appreciate the comic accuracy. But on the other hand, I'm just like, this feels a little corny. I don't know. So I don't know how, like, in Arrow, they did it for the first 3 episodes, and I was so glad they got rid of it. I don't know how to feel about it. I just don't know how to feel about it. So what'd you think?
I'll say I'm generally probably not a fan of like narration as like a way to unless it's done super right. I actually, one of the most recent movies I saw, which was called Lords of Chaos, was kind of a biopic. It doesn't matter, but it had narration describing a lot of stuff, and it's like I get why they're doing it, because there's a lot going on, like it's based on something that happened in real life, and they had to kind of explain all this background. But it felt really corny, especially coming from the character it was coming from. So it is generally something I don't like. However, in general, though, the elite in the Batman, when it's not just the narration, but the whole scene, him first following him going into the Batcave, and narrating and getting us up to speed. It's a really strong positive for me of this movie. I think that, to me, this really set the tone of the movie and let me know what I was getting into. They didn't overdo it with narration through the whole movie. It was just, I liked that it was bookended by narration. You get to see, for a character who says so little throughout it, it was nice to get like some inner mind stuff, like just to understand motivations and feelings a little bit more. It was just such an immersive. I think more than the narration, I was focused on the immersion of that scene as a mechanism to get you eased into the movie. Like, I mean, I really can't. I don't know what it. I really think that Nirvana song was like such a perfect choice. I don't know why. It's just like he absolutely nailed it on like finding just a random like rock song that is like somehow perfectly works for this Batman movie. I just don't even. It was such a perfect tone setter. And then you hear the like mentioning the score. Like the score I thought was so great because you hear the like the reflections, the repeating of like those chord patterns throughout the movie at certain times. And the fact that it was bookended by narration with that song playing at the beginning and narration with that song playing at the end, like, I don't think I would have been primed to like it as much as I did without that. And that's just the truth. It is a little corny, but I just felt myself being like, I feel like that allowed me to be unironic about my enjoyment of it. Like that I would embrace the corniness, some of the broodingness, which sometimes I'm unwilling to do. And I was just, it just worked for me.
Oh, yes. So, yeah, I don't know how I feel about the opening narration. All right.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about this. This scene really pops up to me as another pacing issue that this movie had. Let's talk about how very polite Batman was at the Iceberg Lounge when trying to get in. Because here's what happens. I wrote it down. All right, here's what happens. Batman knocks on the door, waits for a response. Door opens. Then he asks to see the Penguin. Person shuts the door, and Batman just sits there waiting longer. Then door opens, and there's a second person at the door saying that he can't see Penguin. Now, Batman, ever so polite, gives them a final warning like, hey, let me in or I'm going to fight you. Then he waits for their response, and then he fights them. And my God, even the most polite Batman of all, Adam West, knew when it was time to crash through a window. It was just like, why are we spending so much time on this? It just was like, stuff like this is like, why is this movie taking so damn long? It just, to me, that was like a moment that really stood out. Like, my God, the pacing in this movie is awful. So, did that scene stand out to you, or did you prefer more polite Batman, a Batman who would say, "Thank you," and maybe you can take my cape and wash it out, and get the rain out of it because I don't want it to shrink.
Yeah, I think for this one, I'm gonna have to say I do prefer it. That first scene in the movie, I would agree is a pacing issue and could be cut. I think this maybe is more of an example of what I'm talking about, of how I like that it eases you into this new setting. It just doesn't, cut us in. Now we're in a party. It's sort of, the door is open to this new setting. You get a little glimpse. You hear a little bit of the music quietly. And it's an example of how this movie sometimes just likes to let the audience just ruminate on what might happen next. And so, like you said, like closing the door on Batman, and then we're waiting with Batman while he goes to get someone. Like, that's not a typical movie choice. You'd normally cut that. I admit that is, you would normally cut the main character waiting for someone to come back to the door. Absolutely. But that's the kind of thing that's refreshing to me, because those are the kinds of things that allow some of the other like setting and world building things to kind of just sink in. And I mean, that's really all you can say for stuff like that. I mean, there's some comedic relief there with timing and stuff, but I think it's better for just the world building.
If you say so, but I can't help but just think, my God, you could have cut so much had you just had Batman crash through the opening of a window, and either he fights the gang or he just would pop up. Like Penguin goes in the office and he just pops up, kind of like the Riddler did in that opening scene. It was just like, why are we spending so much time on this? It just, and removed a cool aspect of Batman who just pops up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he wasn't exactly the knight. He was a neighbor knocking on the door.
Yes. Asking to borrow some sugar.
But I do think, I mean, I thought it was interesting that it was just like it maybe added to the detective noir kind of thing, because he was like, one option is to just go ask if I can see him, like a detective would.
I don't know. I find it a little hard to believe that the dude who beat up the people at the subway and said, "I'm vengeance," would just stand there so politely, and just be like, I'm trying to stop the Riddler. I will wait for you, Penguin. I will wait." But
yeah,
it is what it is.
Maybe there are no windows.
Oh, then that's another reason to get in there. Up fire code or whatever.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about Batman and Catwoman's relationship. Their relationship felt completely unearned and just kind of happened. And it felt like they just came together because they were just kind of there. It's like Batman's like, "Oh, she wears a mask too? Oh, I think I like this. I think I can trust her. We both wear masks. And maybe her parents are dead too." But it just felt like any romantic relationship they had, it never felt earned. Why Batman starts working with her in the first place, it just was just like, oh, she's there. Well, why not? She's there. Why not? I never felt like, why is he working with Catwoman, the cat burglar? It just kind of just randomly happened. And, for being such a great version of Catwoman, I don't know. It just was like, okay, it just happened. So.
Yeah, I feel like maybe this Batman was like, it felt like, at least at first, the only justification for them communicating at all was that there was like some information that like he was just like, this might be a good way to get information. Maybe he sees something in her that she could be an asset. But yeah, I mean, I would agree. I don't think I was ultimately that compelled by their relationship, and nor do I necessarily have to be yet. I mean, all the more reason, like I said, to bring Catwoman back in all of them, so there's more time to explore this. But ultimately, it did feel, it was almost, it was like a little awkward. Like they didn't know each other that well. It felt like they just had to work together. But ultimately, yeah, it's another thing in this movie that it's like nothing to write home about, but it didn't ruin anything for me particularly.
All right, now this is a quick little thing, and before I bring up another issue I had. For a movie that was supposed to be dark and serious, the scene after Batman punches Gordon, the scene where he runs through the Gotham Police Department in his costume looks so corny. It was just like, wow, this looks like he's dressed up for Halloween. I don't know. It just, the way it was shot or whatever, and the way he ran, even the way his cape flew, which I guess isn't their fault, but it just looks so corny. And my God, when he decided to glide off of the Gotham Police Department building, that was such an ugly suit he wore. That felt like it was just there to sell toys or something. Like,
I don't think it was there to sell toys, because I think everyone could agree that was ugly. Like,
yes, it was. Well, it was
but that I respected it because it seemed to me like a choice that they made to be like, what if Batman was trying to realistically like come up with something to survive a huge fall? Like, it wouldn't necessarily look cool. Like, it looked extremely uncool.
Yeah, but Batman stopped being realistic when he didn't die his first night.
Yeah. For some reason, this contraption made sense in this version of this like more grounded Gotham and Batman situation. Like that just both of those things just made sense in this world to me, that he can survive a bomb because the suit is strong, but also the only way he can fall safely is with a giant garbage bag.
Yes, I guess so. It's not big issues, but it's like
I do want to mention, like, that's not my favorite. What is my favorite part of in one of my standout scenes? I do like his interaction with the cops and the absolute just hatred in that back and forth argument, and Jim Gordon trying to calm them all down, and Batman not making things easier for them by basically saying F the police to their face and just making things really hard for Jim Gordon to keep under control. I liked their smart solution a lot of like, let me talk to him alone. And then, I mean, the dedication of like, I'm going to punch you in the face so you don't get any of the blame for this. That dedication, that was a cool scene. I highly liked Jim Gordon getting punched in the face.
I have to say, in the trailers, that was a scene I was really looking forward to. But if I'm going to be honest, it was a little bit ruined because that was a scene I felt especially it got hard to understand what Robert Pattinson was saying. And at some moments got a little Christian Bale-like. Like, it was...
Yeah, I think you're right.
To me, that was a tough to understand.
I do think it was a little hard. He was angry.
Yes. In a way, I guess it's kind of all you need to know. Just read the body language.
Yeah, like he's escalating things. That's kind of just what I got from that scene, is that like Batman could be de-escalating, but he really doesn't care to de-escalate right now. In fact, he's escalating things and making everyone more on edge because he's not in a good place right now, clearly.
Oh, no. So let's bring this up. This is another big issue I had with the movie. This movie is a detective story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Batman and Gordon are terrible detectives and really solve nothing in the movie. Which is a problem. That's supposed to be a detective story.
That's to my point of the failure. That they failed ultimately at the end.
Yeah, but like in the
movie, no, I'm saying I was not saying that as a positive. I was agreeing with you. So
yeah. So like in the movie, Batman and Gordon are so confident that Penguin is the informant of Falcone. They go, they interrogate him, they learn, oh wait, he's not the informant. What? It wasn't Penguin?
Yeah.
And the main thing we were the whole thing was like, Batman's gonna solve the Riddler thing. He never solves it. He never solves the mystery of the Riddler. Riddler turns himself in, and there's a phone call about it. I mean, it was like a mystery that led to nothing. Like, they never solve anything. Like, it was so just like, why? What was the point of that? Like, if you want to be a detective story, be a detective. But it just was like, really? It was such that moment where we find out Riddler turned himself in was so anticlimactic. I was just like, really? Matt, the whole reason it took you 5 years to make this movie was it was a detective story, and it really isn't a detective story.
I have there are two things in there that I can respond to, and one is you mentioned my my number two, and it is a number two. My other, and maybe my biggest complaint of the movie, is the fact that like just how dumb they seemed, that that they went after the Penguin so hard without like trying to, like when they first said like rat with wings, I was like, kind of sounds like Batman.
Yeah.
Like, it is like they could have thought of that. And then you're kind of on Penguin's side a little. It's like, are you idiots?
Yeah.
It's Batman. And then it's like, okay, so this car scene was for them to meet the Penguin and for him to go, you guys are idiots.
And there's a moment where you just imagine, I don't remember the scene, like what happens afterwards. Like I can just imagine Batman just turning to Gordon and just being like, oh crap, maybe he's not the informant or something.
Oh no, Jim Gordon. I just saw the scene. Jim Gordon says, he turns to Batman and says, "Could that be? Do you think we got something wrong here, or something like that?"
Yes, that's honestly, that sounds like something out of a like Brooklyn Nine-Nine or something.
Yeah, I mean, I would also call that maybe. That's like, this movie didn't have. I mean, it was. For a long time, I've been saying I like humor, and I think in movies, and I prefer it, but I think I'm officially drained of it, and the MCU did that to me. I think I'm finally there, where I'm sick
I
of
think a lot of people are there.
Yeah, I'm fully there. I
we won't talk about it now, but I am curious if you saw the Thor 4 trailer, because we can get in that in the Spider-Man one.
But anyway, I felt like the closest thing that this movie had to any comedic relief at all was kind of this interaction with the Penguin. I mean, it ended with him waddling away. So that's like really the closest thing to anything sort of goofy or ironic in this movie. So it wasn't overdone or anything. So this was my least favorite thing in the movie. And so the way I've had to justify it is like that it is a little funny just how bad they effed up. So I have to justify it in my brain a little bit. On the other hand, this was the other thing I was going to respond to, and one of the things I see as a totally valid type of story, and something that also isn't for everyone, and I somehow find a way to bring this up in every episode. Dear God.
Okay.
You know what I'm going to say, maybe. And that is, one of the complaints that people had about The Last Jedi was that there was a long segment, a long part of the plot that ended up being useless because they were ultimately caught by the First Order with the
Casino Planet thing.
Was that no? It was the escape sequence with they had BB. I think it involved DJ, who is my least favorite part of that entire movie.
Oh yeah, he was awful.
But it isn't. I didn't like that character. I'm fine with like the scenes leading up to that and the like lesson of failure that movie has, and like so there's a whole escape scene, and at the end of it, they were about to escape, and there's the First Order, and they get caught anyway. And so I think a lot of people were upset by that scene, but I never had a problem with it in that, because there's like a point to that. And I think that's kind of the same in this movie, that like the amateurness, the ultimate like ending and failure is part of the point and part of the bleakness of the whole thing. And while most detective stories definitely involve some kind of like wits and like absolute triumph in the end because they just outsmarted the bad guys and the mystery was solved, like they at the end there's a climax where it's like, aha, and now I've got you, because I know exactly what you're doing and I'm stopping your plan. Like there's a big reveal in a lot of mysteries like that. However, there is a mystery detective movie that basically has the same lesson and feeling and conclusion and middle part, which is Seven once again, which I honestly wonder if you ever wanted to watch that movie, you might be surprised at how much it shares, because so you're telling me this movie is nothing but we spent 5 years waiting for our knockoff of Seven. A little bit, but I'll mention a couple of the main things that I see as very similar. The takeaway at the end of Seven, it has a twist that is probably one of the most famous movie twists, honestly. Not as ubiquitous as like a Sixth Sense, dead the whole time, but it really is one of the most famous movie twists, and this whole movie is kind of just leading up to this twist. It's one of those movies. And I won't say what the twist is, but ultimately when the credits roll, you realize that the detectives, the two smart detectives trying to figure out this serial killer and capture him, completely failed. They were outsmarted by the serial killer. And that's like really, it's part of what makes it such a good movie. Is it's really like dark in that way. Here's the other thing that movie does that's so similar to this. A little over halfway through, the serial killer killing people off one by one turns himself in. Wow. Part of the reason this is interesting in both movies, I think, is because the anticlimax of the villain turning themselves in, and you're just like, oh, so they're trying to catch the villain, and they didn't because they didn't catch the villain because they were smart, followed clues, and found him and grabbed him and took him and stopped him. No, the villain just turned himself in. So all of this researching for clues, like, becomes a waste of time, and the killer almost has this like one up on them that like, yeah, you couldn't even catch me, I had to turn myself in. But the biggest thing that does is ease everybody into thinking it's over, like in the audience and the characters. And the biggest bad thing, no one suspects because he's already in prison. So that's kind of the interesting thing to me is thinking that they've done it, they've saved the day, and ultimately the villain has one more big plan to kind of close the whole thing out. And so I guess it's just like, it's a weird thing where like anticlimax and like reversal of expectations can be a pretty good way to tell a story. And to me, in the case of the Batman, it works. It's not the most classic type of detective film type thing. But it also is. It also is something found in other media. It's just not the most common type of detective story. It's a little more transgressive, I think.
Oh yes. So I don't know. Maybe if like if what had happened before, I think, had been well executed, maybe it wouldn't have bothered me as much. But because I wasn't a fan of what they did ahead of time, it's like, really? That's where we're going now?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So let's talk about this problem I had with Alfred's role in the movie. So Alfred, in the movie, he gets, I think, a package from the Riddler, and it explodes. And Alfred's in the hospital, and we think, oh my God, is Alfred dead? And this really shows how underused he was earlier in the movie, because we had spent so little time with this Alfred ahead of time. Like, honestly, any emotion you would have had in that moment of Alfred possibly being dead, or Bruce going to see Alfred in the hospital, is not because of this Alfred. It's because of other versions of Alfred we've seen, like Michael Gough's or Michael Caine's or Jeremy Irons. It just felt like any emotion, again, it felt a little bit like a cheat. Like any emotion was not from this version. It was from other versions. So I just thought, like, for a movie that is like so overstuffed, they really didn't do much with Alfred. And then that scene kind of becomes meaningless. Like there's no emotional impact like I know it wanted to have. So what'd you think about, I guess, how did the thought of Alfred being in jeopardy impact you from seeing the way his role was in the film?
I mean, in its serving of the plot in a zoomed out scale, I like it because, it is a very literal, like, this bomb was meant for Batman, and like, it kind of gives this feeling of guilt to Batman that, he put him in that situation, and all Alfred is ever trying to do is help. Like, there's emotions packed into there, but I would agree that, like, there wasn't really enough time to really drive it home. Like, I think as the audience, you understand what you're supposed to feel and why this is a big deal. But I don't know, they're understandably, there wasn't quite enough there to make you, like, I don't know, to me, like, they didn't have, like, for example, like 3 whole movies of Aunt May, and then in No Way Home that happens. Like, that's more impactful in the context of just the movie on its own.
But like Aunt May feels like she has more of a bigger role in No Way Home before her death scene. Like, one of like the standout scenes is like her and Peter at Feast, where like she's saying, "Not your problem, Peter. Look around. This is what we do." It just felt like she had more of a role in that movie than Alfred did in this movie.
No Way Home has overall, like, hands down more emotional punches. So, in terms of that movie does it better. It's Alfred could have been done a little more justice, I suppose. So, yeah, that's all I can really say about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess the question is, did you have any emotional reaction to that, or would any emotional reaction have happened from what you saw in this movie or from other iterations of Alfred?
I think there was, I guess I could say initially the emotional reaction was probably more driven by other versions of Alfred, because, like, that the person who was just possibly killed is Alfred. That's a big deal. So there's some meta understanding of that kind of affects, like, that I did have a reaction to it. I think they do a pretty good job of sort of retroactively bringing in some of those feelings, though, which, yeah, it's unfortunate it wasn't there leading up to it, but, like, I totally think that, like Batman talking to Alfred in the subsequent scenes, and sort of the sincerity and, like, dread of all those exchanges, like, those are very touching, and, like, kind of, like, then it sinks into you, like, I don't know, it's like when you see him in the hospital like that, it's like a relief that he's alive, but, like, as they start to talk and you see how hurt he is, like, it definitely starts to sink in, but it didn't necessarily earn that beforehand. It sort of has to retroactively start to drive home some of their history and, like, why this is a big deal, sort of retroactively.
Yes. So I only have 2 more negative points to bring up before we discuss what's next. So let's talk about the Batman Riddler interrogation scene. So for me, unlike the Joker interrogation scene in The Dark Knight, this showed how Riddler wasn't a very good villain or memorable villain, and that times came off a bit corny. And it just showed, like, yeah, Riddler, he kind of popped up in the movie, I guess, but he never really had a real presence like Heath Ledger's Joker or Jack's Joker or some other Batman movie villains. And it honestly, it felt like the scene was a bit of a waste because we had barely, the two had barely interacted. And it was just like, honestly, it felt a bit like, oh, let's do our version of the Dark Knight's interrogation scene, since that's almost everyone's favorite scene in the movie. It was just, it just, at that point, it was just like, this means nothing. This means nothing. So, what'd you think of the Batman Riddler interrogation scene?
Yeah. I mean, to me, this scene is strong for a couple of reasons. One, that it is the main reason that I bring up, one of the first things I brought up, which is that I like how like lame and crazed like this Riddler seems. That like when he's like, yeah, he really seems detached from reality, that he believed that he could really get the Batman on his side. And like him started like, it's so weird saying this stuff as a positive. This is a positive to me. When he starts singing Ave Maria, it's straight up cringy. And like, but like that's what this Riddler is. He's thinks he's a little edgelord Unabomber type guy, and he's not as cool or as like he doesn't. He's like a dweeb searching for power, trying to make something big of himself, trying to seem really important, and in some ways it even comes across as like trying to seem crazy, which I think a lot of like serial murderers do a little bit, is like kind of ham up their craziness. It comes across a little there. But I like seeing how just diluted he is as well. And I think it stands in stark contrast to that Joker interrogation scene, because that's kind of what I was talking about. Like the Joker is like basically cool and interesting in that scene. I mean, it's a different kind of crazy, and this one feels more like someone who's not really there, someone who's he's just, I don't know, he's just a pasty loser. But the other thing I wanted to what was the other thing I wanted to bring up? I'm reaching that point in the podcast. Interrogation scene. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up with this?
Not really with the interrogation scene. I mean, are you talking? Well, I mean, there's something other people brought up, but I don't think it's that big a deal. It's like where the movie tricks you into thinking that Riddler knows Batman's Bruce Wayne.
Oh yeah, I remember that. But I did spark my memory of what I was going to say, which is that this scene is that scene I was talking about, where the reason Riddler lured him in there was, well, who knows if he was really like this smart and planning this whole thing out like this, but like Batman's there talking to the Riddler, and meanwhile, like he is currently failing to solve the case, because it is this discussion where the Riddler reveals that all the vans are about to blow up. He reveals his plan. And even though he turned himself in, which might let everyone's guard down, in fact, he still was plotting and succeeded in that plan. And so that's why I think that this is a really important scene, because it's kind of like it's that moment in the movie. I think like a lot of the I don't know, I'm getting some Homecoming vibes of this, where like I see totally what you're saying with a lot of criticisms, and like even though I can kind of agree, it doesn't ruin it for me. Like I still manage to like it. By the way, this is like leaps and bounds a better movie than Homecoming. I don't want to give, like, this is
like, unlike Homecoming, what you're saying about what you liked about the movie sounds awesome. I just don't think it's executed that well.
But what I was gonna, so it's different, but I'm getting that kind of thing where like I agree with some of your criticisms, but it just like I don't know if it's a criticism for me. This is maybe the biggest thing that I'm kind of personally, I just didn't feel like the Riddler wasn't there. Like,
really?
It just that's kind of interesting to me. That, like, to me it was like, oh, here's the Riddler, the villain we've been dealing with this whole time. Like, that it's strange. This is a very different reaction to it.
Like, I'd almost think Falcone was more of the main villain, and Riddler just kind of popped up from time to time.
Well, I do think that Falcone I would kind of call him the main villain overall. But to me, that almost felt like a little bit of a twist because I was so primed to believe that Riddler was the main villain. And the fact that there was something bigger going on that made the Riddler just seem like a chump, like, seems significant to me. And I felt like we were following the Riddler's clues, and that all of these other plot lines were just kind of an extension of them following the Riddler's clues.
Yeah, like every time he popped up, I was like, oh yeah, Riddler's supposed to be in this movie. I forgot about him. Yeah. He does sign. All right, and we move on to the next thing.
He definitely wasn't there much, but it's just, it's an off-screen villain.
Oh yes. All right, so I have one last thing before we can bring up any other points you'd have before we jump into what's next. So let's talk about the introduction, because we thought there were going to be 3 Batman villains in this movie. It turned out there was a 4th one. Yes. Also, the last time these 4 were together in a movie was 1966 Batman the movie starring Adam West. We had our introduction to this version of the Joker. Yes. Mm-hmm. And I gotta say, it felt like it was just thrown in there to set up a sequel. It really kind of served no narrative purpose. And I would say the deleted scene, which you haven't seen, right?
No.
There's a deleted scene where Batman goes to talk to the Joker to talk about who could the Riddler possibly be, what type of person is he. That would have made far more sense and served far more narrative purpose than this random scene between Riddler and Joker. It just felt like, why is this here? And even more so after the deleted scene, it's like, why was that one there but not this one? It just, well, I don't know. What'd you think about Joker's, let's just say, a cameo that really served no purpose? Kind of like the Illuminati in Doctor Strange. What?
I have not seen the new Doctor Strange. They could have removed the Joker from this movie. I didn't really care. And ultimately, I feel like in that scene, it could have been any villain. It didn't matter. It wasn't interesting to me that it was the Joker. If anything, I might have preferred it being a different villain because, I mean, we've gotten so many Jokers, obviously. Obviously, this is a very different one, but still.
That's the one you really, really want to see Batman fight.
Yeah. I think for this one, I was maybe hoping, and maybe this was, like, we got it in the second movie last time. I'd like it in the last movie this time.
Yes.
But
that's what I think that they're going to, well, we'll talk about what I think they're going to do, but.
All right. Yeah, that's what's next. Like, I did get, like, the feeling of dread of, like, oh no, like, there's bigger things going on. Like, the Riddler is just a small fry. Like, there's some purpose that I see to that scene, but like I said, it could have been any villain there. It could have been any random inmate that he was just laughing with to show how still unhinged he is. It being the Joker just didn't do a lot for me. And that's, yeah, it didn't do a lot for me.
Yes. So I am a little curious about what your reaction to it would have been if you had seen the deleted scene. About if you would have been like, why didn't we have that instead?
I didn't know about that, so.
Oh no, it's a far better. I mean,
When was that released? Is it like how do you watch this deleted scene? Is it just online?
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like 5 minutes, even though it should have been 2. But whatever.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess I'll ask you if you had any other points you wanted to bring up before we talk about what's next.
Yeah, I think. Well, okay. Actually, I guess here's the. I'm just curious. I was wondering this, and I was expecting it to be one of your points because we brought up most characters. I personally haven't had that much of an exposure. Falcone has not been a villain in any Batman stuff I've consumed. So I guess I was curious. I liked him, but I don't know. I have the history of like all the adaptions or what this character is that much. So I guess I do wonder what your feelings on this adaptation of Falcone is.
I really liked this version of Falcone. I liked how he has more, I guess, of a presence than the version we had in Batman Begins. Because he's only in it for a little bit in Batman Begins. But I really liked it. I liked how he was kind of like this smooth talking guy. Like, you would kind of see where, like, he thinks that Gotham is his empire and that, like, he's the king. So I really liked that. It felt very similar. Again, pulling from The Long Halloween was nice to see. Also, man, I wish, sometimes you wish you post something on Facebook 10 years ago so that, like, years later you can like show it off later. Yeah. I remember in 2012 reading either The Long Halloween and its sequel Dark Victory, which tells the origin of Robin. I remember wishing I wonder how many people who've watched the Batman trilogy, the Nolan ones, know that Falcone is Catwoman's father. So
I didn't. And you know what? I forgot he was in Batman Begins too, because a lot of these more just like I didn't necessarily know the like sort of mob like criminal leader type villains in Batman I'm not that familiar with. So this was kind of a new character to me. It felt like.
Yeah, we've had like 3 versions of Falcone. We've had him in Batman Begins, the Gotham TV show, which is my favorite version, and this version. I really liked this version of Falcone.
Yeah. And that was basically the last thing I was going to say, which is that for me, I thought it was like the 3 villains. When you said 4, did you include like Catwoman in that?
There was Riddler, Penguin. Yeah.
Okay, because Catwoman. You said 4, and I was like, because I was thinking, I personally thought that like it was.
Yeah, Joker wasn't enough to count him as 1.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I felt like a trifecta of 3 great villains, sort of coming at different angles, having different motivations, and I thought that was really great at creating a kind of confusing mystery, like in a positive way. And so I thought Falcone was a really good, like, just combination of just a little suave, a little creepy. So I really liked his performance. So yeah, I did want to touch on that, at least give it its due. So yeah, I think that's all I have.
His name. I don't remember what his name is, but the actor's name.
Yeah.
He was really good as Falcone.
And you know what's
Falcone, there's 2 different ways people pronounce it. There's the Nolan way, which is Falcone, and the Gotham TV show, which is Falcone. So I always go with the TV show. John Turturro.
Yeah. I think I'll say Falcone from now on, because that's what I said before this podcast, and I thought I might have been wrong. What's funny is a couple days after I saw the Batman, I rewatched the movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And for a long time I was like, gosh, that guy looks familiar. And yeah, one of the main characters is him. He looks very different, but
how old is that movie?
It's from like 2000, like early 2000s.
Okay.
Something. He looks maybe more middle-aged in that movie, but he's like bald and has no mustache, and certainly no sunglasses.
That does it.
Yeah, that'll do it. And so it was very hard. Like after I realized it was him, though, I couldn't unsee it. As Falcone, but yeah.
Yes.
I really liked that casting choice.
Yes. So should we get into what's next?
Absolutely, we should.
All right. So now we did have some kind of news come out during CinemaCon recently, but before that news, I'll just say what I was thinking. You know, at the time that the Batman was coming out, I was really excited that we were going to have two versions of Batman, you know, in the movies at the same time. We had Robert Pattinson, and we were going to have Michael Keaton take over in the DCEU. And I was really excited for having both of them. But honestly, the whole time I was watching this movie, I was just like, oh, thank God we have Keaton in The Flash. Because it just... I mean, honestly, this movie, I'm way more invested in Michael Keaton's Batman in the DCEU now than I am in Robert Pattinson's Batman going forward. So, I mean, honestly, if it were up to me, I would, on the next Batman movie, I'd rather have it be a Dark Knight Returns movie with Michael Keaton, with Jack Nicholson as Joker, Billy D. Williams as Two-Face, and either Tom Welling or Brandon Routh as Superman. I mean, I hope the sequel is good, but I just gotta be like, to me, Michael Keaton's Batman is now the one I'm looking forward to the most of the two. So, if it were up to me, I would have rather have had a new writer and director come over, because as much as I appreciate how Matt Reeves clearly understood the character, and I 100% believe tried his best, I just don't think his creative choices really worked for the movie. So, I don't know. I guess before we kind of get into what we think is going to happen with the sequel, we do know Matt Reeves is coming back for the sequel. I hope it doesn't take him as long as it did last time, 5 years, because if it is, then just make Dark Knight Returns with Keaton. But I hope he learns from his mistakes, because even people who like the movie and don't like the movie, I think a lot of people will agree on the similar criticisms. Like, it was too long, pacing issues. I think a lot of people agree with that. I hope he can improve upon, keep what worked, because there's stuff that worked in the movie, and improve on what needs to be worked on. So I wish we had a different writer and director, but it is Reeves. I'm rooting for him. He clearly understands and loves the character. So I guess, what are your thoughts about Reeves coming back to do another one?
I mean, I'm, of course, very excited for more of this. I think my biggest thing, and like, I'm also excited for Keaton's Batman, but like with something like that, like if someone else were to direct it, if there was like, if we were to, retry this again, someone else direct it, I just feel like I know, and this is true with like Keaton as Batman, which I'm excited for, but I know what I'm getting is some kind of superhero movie like we've seen before. And I know, I reading a little into it, I know that when Matt Reeves took it over, I think he found the script to be kind of just another superhero movie and wanted to change that. And so that's what I'm more on board for and on the ride for, is I know that at least hopefully the sequel to this movie will be something distinct from a different version of Batman that we might get, and we might just get anyway, because there are going to be probably some other animated features, probably Keaton's version, maybe more of that too. I know with this, I'm getting a distinct vision that is separate from what I'd expect from other superhero movies. So I am excited to be on the ride for that, and that's why I absolutely do want, at least I want this vision of it to be completed as a trilogy. It doesn't have to be, like we've talked about before. Like, I don't necessarily believe that like it has to be the same director. Like, that could be a flaw if he gets way too much creative control by the third one and it ends up being terrible or something. So, like, we know how that goes.
Yes.
So if someone else had kind of the same vision for a Batman story, I wouldn't say it needs to be Matt Reeves again. But I do think that Matt Reeves had an excellent understanding what to do, executed it well, and I think for that he's earned a number 2. And hopefully I don't mean that, Hopefully it'll be good. It won't be a number 2.
Yes. All right. So let's talk about what we think we can expect, and then we'll talk about what we can't think we can expect with some of the other Batman movies, because we got 2 other ones coming up. 2 others that have been filmed now.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I'll just say this. They announced that there's going to be a sequel at CinemaCon. Honestly, until you have a release date, I don't care. Like, honestly, with all like the DC projects and Star Wars projects that get announced, I'm genuinely to the point, like, unless you have a release date, I don't care.
Yeah, it's all meaningless now.
Yeah, like, I don't know why they didn't announce a release date unless Matt Reeves was like, all right, I'm really going to take my time with this one. It's like, oh, well, good luck.
I mean, I have to hope, like, everything's set up now. I would hope that there's no, like, drama or reasons to delay things. Like, you have a cast, you have the director on board. It would be such a shame if it were a mess again.
It should come out by 2025. That's 3 years from now.
I would say, like, that's way more than enough time.
Yes. All right. So I'll just say why I think my guesses are for what we can expect from the next film. So it talks about how the film ended with Riddler kind of doing his thing where it flooded the city. My guess is that the next movie is going to be an adaptation of No Man's Land, the storyline No Man's Land, where, after a natural disaster, Gotham is cordoned off. The United States government says you are on your own, and it's up to the GCPD and the Bat family in the comics to kind of bring order to Gotham, and all of the areas are kind of broken up by the villains. Like, one area is run by the Penguin. One area is run by Mr. Freeze. One area is run by Harley Quinn. It's just, That's how it is. So it would be our 4th adaptation after The Dark Knight Rises, Gotham Season 5, and Harley Quinn Season 2. So there's that. It is my favorite Batman comic book storyline, so it's another reason I'm rooting for you, Matt. I'm rooting for you. So, and I really hope this one does a better job telling its story than this one did. I hope it has a better job with the main villain and isn't overstuffed, because I gotta say, No Man's Land, if that's the route they're gonna go, it could be very, very overstuffed, especially if Matt struggles with a villain like he did with the Riddler, at least in my opinion. So I hope he fixes the issues, because if he doesn't, it could be a mess, but if he works on it, it could be awesome. So that's kind of my thought. So do you have any predictions on what to expect from the sequel?
Well, I would hope that Matt Reeves can recognize his strengths. He did so good with, like, the mob crime lord sort of villains. Clearly that's that's a talent for him and whoever else is involved in making that happen, including the cast and writers and stuff. kind of focusing on that down to earth crime ring part of Gotham to me would be the perfect way to go about a second movie. And I have to say, I think I have to imagine that's probably in mind. I mean, I haven't thought about it. Like, it's interesting. We would be starting it, assuming we're starting right off from where we left off, like a Gotham that has been flooded. Upset in the criminal rings. It's interesting. It's a very interesting aftermath to be dealing with. So I guess I hope and expect that we'll be looking further into these more down to earth sort of the crime of the crime of Gotham, the corruption of Gotham should be a main theme that we see. Anything kind of more extravagant than that, I would hope kind of waits for the third movie. So yeah, I mean, that's what I feel like. It's clear that those are his strengths, and I can see that being where it goes.
I have to be honest, I don't think that the gangsters are going to have any role in the next movie. I think it's going to be all the supervillains.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd have to think that, like,
especially because, like, knowing the No Man's Land storyline,
right?
I just think it's really going to be jam packed of like all the arch enemies,
Gotcha.
all the supervillains.
I could see that, and you know, I do think it would be cool. Like my favorite part of this is the Gotham. So to really explore Gotham and the different parts of Gotham, that is a really interesting storyline too. One feeling I have from this movie, because it's so distinct, it almost, try to think of what to most compare it to, but it seems like one of those things where I feel like this movie was so distinct and worked for me in such a specific way that I have maybe too much anticipation of there being two more of the same thing, which is, I guess, what I did with Spider-Man Homecoming, I think, where I was like, well, what's going to happen next is they're going to take the part that was good in this and just do that. I definitely have a tendency to do that, and that's kind of like, I could see this being a situation where even if there's a sequel, I'm fine with this just being a standalone. So there's not a lot riding on it for that reason. But you've got such great Gotham. Like, explore that more.
Oh, yes. So I don't think the next movie is going to really have a main villain. My guess is that if there is going to be kind of a main villain, like Riddler kind of was supposed to be in this one, my guess is it would probably be Penguin. But do you have a guess of who the main villain would be?
I mean, yeah, the reason why I was saying what I initially said was because I was kind of imagining it being Penguin, especially because he seems not fully there yet, not fully developed, and like maybe he'll take this aftermath of what the Riddler has done and sort of use it to his advantage, take the weakness and, you know, try and take advantage and hold some power because of that. Like, that's the kind of thing I see happening. My only other thought would be something more Arkham related, but I just really, I don't think they'd go straight for the Joker as the main villain of the second one. I really don't think.
I mean, I think Joker will be in the next movie and have a bit of a substantial role, but I don't think he'll be the main one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree to that. If I had to pick one, it would be Penguin.
From the deleted scene, Batman's already fought the Joker.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, I guess we'll talk about, before we get into the DCEU Batman, let's talk about the HBO Max shows.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are 2 HBO Max shows coming that are spin-offs of the Batman. Now, look, I'll be honest. I don't like Marvel and DC having TV shows that are spin-offs of the movies. I'd much rather them be separate, like how the Arrowverse is separate from the DCEU. I don't like it because then it just feels like these are just spin-offs.
Yeah.
So I will be honest, I don't have a real interest in the Arkham Asylum or Penguin spin-off they're going to do, but if they're only 6 episodes, I'm assuming, if Robert Pattinson guest stars as Batman or Bruce Wayne, I'll watch that episode.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, what do you think about the HBO Max shows? Like, personally, I'm not really interested.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess I'd watch it if Batman popped up.
Yeah. Like that's interesting. That's cool. I mean, I like this movie and it's not something that compels me to watch it. Because I mean, I guess I would rather, like, if we're gonna have a trilogy, let's not exhaust it with a bunch of spin-offs. But
I'd rather honestly have a Penguin show that wasn't connected to the movies, just its own Penguin show following a version that a different iteration of Batman fights.
Yeah. I would say the biggest pull to having a Penguin show would be if they aren't going to touch on Penguin more in the subsequent sequels, and in that case I would be like, hey, let's explore this some more. But overall, it feels not asked for, at least by me. I don't care for something that feels like a spin-off like this. And
Penguin is one of our favorite characters in the movie, and we're not even really interested in seeing him in a spin-off.
Yeah, I mean, I'm mildly interested.
Yes. All right, so let's talk about the next movie that's going to have Batman. It comes out in 2023, which, by the way, bunch of our upcoming 2022 special, so freaking wasted now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's right now called The Flash, but let's be honest, because of Ezra Miller being a horrible person who decides that they want to fight and, fight people at bars and threaten to kill people, I can't wait for this a-hole to get fired from the franchise. And I will still say, until the movie comes out, fire Ezra Miller, because I don't want that a-hole playing the Flash anymore. But
yeah,
the movie's shot, whatever. So we have a new movie currently called The Flash, but I guarantee you, if there's any prediction I can give on this show in its 5 years history, let me be as bold as I can. When it comes out next year, if it comes out next year and isn't delayed, it will not be called The Flash. It's going to be called Justice League, either Crisis or Flashpoint. And in the marketing, Batman is going to be the main character. And I'm expecting any day now, we're going to hear that there's going to be more reshoots with Michael Keaton on the set so that they can make Batman the main character of the movie. So,
yeah, bold statements.
Yes, I guarantee you, even if they're going to change the name, and in the marketing, Keaton will be the main character.
Wow.
Yes. So the whole time I was watching the Batman, I kept on thinking, at least we're getting Keaton. I have to say, so I think the news came out on a Tuesday. I won't lie. I was not having a good day on Tuesday. And then I heard the news. Flash and Aquaman have been delayed till next year. So the Batman movie I was really hoping for, after I didn't like this one, was delayed. But the movie got moved up. Do you know what that movie was?
What?
Shazam 2.
Yeah.
That was not a good day. Like, anyone who saw me was like, oh, I was so upset that day. So, yeah. So my prediction is that Michael Keaton will have as much screen time as Tobey and Andrew did in No Way Home, but I think it'll be more spread out throughout the movie. I don't think they'll come in, because they come in at like kind of the halfway point. I think they'll be spread out a little bit. That Keaton will be spread out a little bit more. I think Ben Affleck will be at most 2 scenes, 1 action scene, which, I mean, they've had a stuntman in his suit on a bat cycle and 1 dialogue heavy scene. And I will say, look, you can go back. I was very pessimistic about Keaton coming back as Batman, even though he's my favorite live action Batman, because I don't like bringing back old actors via multiverse, like Crisis on Infinite Earths, or I'll say it, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I don't like when they do that, and they aren't the real version. But I do like how we know we're going to get more Keaton ahead of the Flash. So that's what I like to know. And one thing that makes me really excited for this movie, which I think will be called Justice League, is that, I mean, some of the recent movies, they've either been like, we're going to try and make a grounded Batman. We're going to try and make a Batman in a movie that's like that's like a totally different genre. I like how in this one, it feels like we're just going to have Batman. He's Batman. Just do Batman the way he is in the comics. That's what I'm excited about. So I am so excited to see Keaton in Justice League, formerly known as Flash. So I'm excited for it. I can't believe we had to wait, because we were supposed to have the year of Batman in movies this year, 3.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they say it's because of COVID. A lot of the special effects places are backed up right now. But
yeah, I bet.
I mean, to me, this is the Batman. Keaton's Batman is what I'm most excited to see. So, what are your thoughts about Keaton returning in this movie, currently known as The Flash?
I think I've personally been in a little bit of a, like, I'll have to wait until I see it attitude with this. Which, I mean, I have to say, I feel like that was kind of my attitude with the possibility of Tobey and Andrew returning to Spider-Man as well, because I was just like, how are they going to make this work? I just didn't necessarily, you know, I like a standalone, like, living in its own rules, own logic, own world, more than, like, it feels too meta to me, where, like, everyone's kind of winking at the idea that we all know that this was Batman back in a different movie. So that's always something that, like, that doesn't interest me, but having, like, it doesn't interest me on one level, but it interests me on another level of, like, primal curiosity of seeing something nostalgic. But I just come out thinking, like, I think that this could be really good, but I really just want to wait and see ultimately. Like I mentioned, in terms of taste and, like, preference in genre, I think it's just that this was the Batman is always what I was looking more forward to as something new there. So yeah, that's me on it. I am excited, but I'm just I'm wary because I don't know what to expect.
Yes. Well, besides the what's called the Flash, we do know we're gonna get another movie with Michael Keaton as Batman. That is Batgirl. So, should I say? Oh, okay, I'll say it. I'll start with this. You know, when they announced that Flash and Aquaman were moving to next year, they never announced that Batgirl was moving, which right now is still currently scheduled to come out in 2022 on HBO Max. With all the Ezra stuff, I think this movie's going to come out before the Flash movie. I think they're going to put, even if it doesn't make narrative sense, they're going to put out Batgirl to get people hyped to see Michael Keaton in the Flash movie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's going to, I still think there's a more likely chance we're going to have it come out this year.
Yeah.
To build hype, even though it might be a little confusing, might not make a lot of sense, but it's like, I mean, honestly, the smart thing would have been to fire Ezra Miller 2 years ago and replace them with a new actor, but
yeah,
they decide not to, which is why they're in the mess they're in today.
Yeah.
Which is what, Ezra's going to keep doing what they do until...
I was going to say, there's been crap with them like forever ago. So the fact that they...
And it's getting worse now, too. Like,
yeah.
So, you know it's going to happen the week the movie premieres. You just know that's going to happen. So, whatever. I can't wait for Ezra to get fired. So, yeah, if they're up to me, I'd have, honestly, with the Flash show, they've announced it's going to end next year. Just get Grant Gustin and reshoot the scenes. No one wants Ezra as the Flash. So, when they announced that Keaton was going to be in the movie, I thought it was going to be as a cameo as Bruce Wayne. And I am shocked that we're seeing Seth Bowes, a stuntman in his new bat suit, which looks awesome, and that he took a selfie of him, like a silhouette of him in the suit. And like Leslie Grace, who plays Batgirl, was talking about how cool it was to see him on set in the suit. And I'm just like, what? Honestly, I'm still kind of expecting it to be small, but it is kind of turning into at least a bigger role than I thought it would be. Like, I don't think it's now just going to be a cameo. Like, I think between the two, he'll have more screen time in The Flash, but it's bigger than what I thought. Like, so I'm really excited to have Batman interact with another member of the Bat family. Like, last night I watched an episode of Batman the Animated Series where he was teaming up with Batgirl, and personally, I've always preferred having him team up with like Robin or Batgirl than just working by himself. So I'm excited for that. So still hope this movie comes out in theaters. So what are your thoughts on the upcoming Batgirl movie with the return of Michael Keaton?
I have to say, I guess I'm probably quite a bit more excited for this, if only because, I tend to be a naysayer to super multiverse sort of messy timeline stuff like that until I see it. I mean, I feel like I usually end up liking them, but the idea of it makes a lot more sense to me for Michael Keaton to have an appearance in a Batgirl movie. That registers in my brain more. So on that,
to have him in the Batgirl movie, you have to have the Flash movie happen that brings him into the DCEU.
Yeah, technically.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, some people are a bit disappointed. Like, why couldn't this just be the Burton verse or whatever? Why does that have to be the DCEU? I'm just like, well, it's better than nothing.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I understand the Flash thing has to happen. I'm not saying to bring him in out of nowhere and not explain it. I guess it's just that like that explains it for sure, but I think I'm ultimately more interested in seeing that story. But who knows?
More
We'll
of a
see.
traditional Batman story or
Yeah.
Gotham story.
Exactly.
Yes. So, did we want to wrap this up with some quick rabbit hole before we give our final thoughts?
Sure.
Let's end on a bit more positive.
It's La Rata.
Yes.
hole.
All right. Let's see. Dark Knight Rises was 7, 8. So this is the 9th Batman movie. So for the 10th Batman movie, the next one,
Mhm.
who would you rather have it star? Would you rather have it be Michael Keaton, Ben Affleck, or Robert Pattinson? Personally, I would rather, like I said earlier, I'd rather have Dark Knight Returns with Michael Keaton. But I guess of the three, which would you want to be in the next Batman movie?
I mean, I gotta say Pattinson. I feel like the sequel to the Batman. I mean, that would be number 10. That's what I want to see.
All right, true Pattinson fan. All right,
I'm a Pat head.
will we? What was that?
A Pat head.
Oh yes,
That's what they call us.
Yes. Will we see Robin in the Matt Reeves series? My guess is probably no, because we always reboot instead of continuing. I mean, Robert Pattinson's Batman is a bit young, where I don't know if
That's
he'd
what
be
I was
ready to
thinking.
train a Robin. And look, let's not pretend. We know that the third one's gonna be a piece of garbage where he'll either die or retire. So really, we're only just gonna get two worthwhile ones from him. So I kind of doubt it. I think we'd have to have one where Batman's been Batman for a while before you could have Robin in it. So what do you think?
Yeah, I do not see this Batman having a Robin. He is too young. Feel like there's a lot of growth this Batman needs to do before he's ready to have an intern.
Oh yes. All right. This might be a little tough for you, but which Batman villain that we haven't seen in a movie would you want to see for the first time?
Yeah, these are always tough for me. I forget the one that was asked last time, but like I don't know if I have an exposure to a villain that hasn't been in a movie. And if I did reading a comic, I feel like most of them were kind of bad. Like it was some corny, like
Condiment King or Kite
Yeah.
Man from Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
Is he in season 1 Kite Man? I don't remember.
I don't remember. It's been a while since I've seen it.
I mean, do you know who Kite Man is from Harley Quinn?
No.
Okay, then he's not in season 1.
Okay. Yeah. I straight up don't have an answer to that question because I can't think of one.
All right, I did have one, but when I mentioned another show, it kind of jogged something in my mind. So I was gonna say more recent villain edition, which would be Hush. That's like a mystery. It's connected to Bruce Wayne's past. That's what I want to see. But after mentioning Harley Quinn, and look, what they do in like animation is great, but I think you'd have to change it a bit for live action, especially for a Batman movie. You could do a more comic version one in a Justice League movie, but Clayface. Just like do the original Bill Finger, Bob Kane version of this, like actor who goes evil and is able to disguise himself as anyone, kind of like the chameleon in Spider-Man. So Clayface, as much as I would love Clayface like we have in Harley Quinn, who's my favorite character besides Batman in that show.
Yeah.
So yeah, Clayface is who I'd want. All right. Who is a villain you'd want to see return in a Batman movie that we've seen before and you really want to have come back? Mine? Oh, I guess I can say mine first. I would like, and I'm not saying this, I think they did a great job with the villain in this movie. but I'd like to see a more proper version of Two-Face. Because as much as I love The Dark Knight, I think his role in The Dark Knight was great. It was perfect. But I'd like to see one where he's the villain the whole movie. So Two-Face is mine that I really, really would like to see a whole movie with.
Yeah. I mean, when you first said it, that's my obvious answer, because Two-Face is my favorite Batman villain and has been since I first got into Batman. And like, the truth is that's got to be my answer, because like I hadn't thought of it super hard until this point, but like that's really just, if we're thinking about the types of Batman villains that would really work in this version of Gotham, this story, Two-Face is definitely one of them. They would just work really, really well. Being like a figure in the city, and I feel like Two-Face is the absolute most excited I would be for a villain coming back in this version. It would be interesting to see a lot of different villains. Like, I'm trying to think, like, there are like some of them that just come to mind, like, I don't know, Poison Ivy or something. Like, it doesn't necessarily feel like it works as well in this particular Batman universe, although it could be done well.
You could have it be like she's a scientist or whatever, and like she creates poison, or she doesn't have to necessarily control plants.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's ways to do it, but Two-Face feels like the most seamless to me. And it's, like I said, my favorite villain, so I gotta have the same answer.
Oh, yes. So, now that you've seen the Batman, would you rather... I don't even know if I should have asked this, but I was just like, whatever, we'll throw it in there.
Okay.
Would you rather have had the Batman or Ben Affleck's Batman movie?
I mean, it's straight. Honestly, like, when I was reading about it, like, so to me, one of the biggest lost like things in film history is like we almost got a Guillermo del Toro Hobbit. He was super passionate about it and understood the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings series. I think that Guillermo del Toro's single Hobbit movie that he was planning for so long would have been amazing. Like, I really believe that, and we unfortunately got the timeline where that didn't happen, and it became this weird Frankenstein's monster of different Lord of the Rings things mashed together into a movie that has some Hobbit things and is ultimately just a weird Peter Jackson verse type version of the Hobbit. And it's just like, I get so sad when I think about, like, there's going to be one great movie with a really interesting theme. This feels like the reverse of that to me, where like I feel like the Ben Affleck version would have been more what I would have expected, a more like actiony. Like I think this is just on the Wikipedia page, but apparently it was described as the script is more like James Bondy, and
well, that's what Matt Reeves said
about the Ben Affleck script.
Yeah.
Okay. If he is right about that, I mean, I don't like James Bond. It's not
Nolan also said his Batman was inspired by James Bond, so
nah. I don't accept that into my worldview. So this feels like the happy ending to me, where I personally feel like the better version came out because someone took over who I just think probably had a better plan and a understanding of Batman. I think it ended up the right way.
Yeah, it's hard for me because I think the Batman is a bad movie. Like, I think it understands the character. I just think it's poorly made.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Batman has an interesting idea, but I think maybe Ben's would have been better executed. So,
mm-hmm.
between the two, It's really tough not knowing it fully because some of the stuff I heard about Ben's makes me go, why would you do that? But I don't know. Maybe if the sequel happens and it's good, maybe I change. But to be honest, is so hard for me to know right now. Like,
yeah, of course.
Yeah. Hey, Warner Bros., how do you publish that script?
Yeah.
Should Robert Pattinson's Batman be completely standalone with no other, besides like Robin or Nightwing or Batgirl? Should Robert Pattinson's Batman be completely standalone from a greater DC universe?
Yes.
I will say yes, but I will give one asterisk. There's one character that I think if you wanted to have him team up, it would be cool.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a guess of who it is?
Is it like a main one, or like, am I gonna have to dig deeper for this character?
No, it would be one of the big ones.
Okay. I'm checking things off. It's not gonna be that. Not gonna be that. Is it like a Justice League member?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, the only one I can think of that might work would be like Cyborg, but that's just because it's the only one that isn't like.
Okay, you were thinking of the movie.
Alien.
No, I meant in the comics. But the one, if you want to have some type of a crossover or a spin-off that can coexist, the one I would say would be Green Arrow.
Gotcha. No, that makes total sense.
Yes. All right. Well, okay, we're talking about Batman. It's kind of DC. So do you have any ideas of what Warner Bros. Should do with a Superman movie? Because I'll just be honest, I never thought I'd say this. I'm to the point of I do not care if they ever make another Superman movie ever again. Because, look, Superman 2, in my opinion, is the best superhero movie ever made that doesn't have Batman. Superman the movie by Richard Donner is my favorite origin story ever told in a superhero movie. Like, I love Spider-Man 2002 or Amazing Spider-Man or Batman Begins. But for me, Superman the movie is the definitive superhero origin movie. But, I've been on this earth for 29 years. During the whole time I've been alive, there has never been a good Superman movie made. On the contrary, there have been three great Superman TV shows made, and two of them I think are the greatest superhero shows ever made in Smallville and Superman and Lois. So personally, I'm to the point of, just because of how it's been my whole life, I would rather Superman just be a TV character instead of a movie character. That being said, if they were going to try and do a movie version, my God, stop trying to make Superman relatable. Clark Kent is the relatable character. Superman is the fantasy. And it shocks me how, like, we've had two Superman movies made in my life and they struggle so bad because honestly, and I'm going to say something and people might be a little surprised when I say it, but it's true. If you combine Spider-Man and Captain America, that's Superman. I mean, it's not that hard. It's just everyone's like, how do we make Superman relatable? We're going to make him sad. No, just do what Spider-Man does. Like, no one watches Spider-Man because the guy webbing everyone's relatable. They watch it for Peter Parker or Captain America with Steve Rogers. Like, I don't understand why they just struggle so much when the TV shows do it so perfectly. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's, for me, I am so over a Superman movie. Like, have him be a TV character. That's where he works best. So do you have any thoughts on what to do for a Superman movie?
Yeah, to me, it hasn't worked, and I struggle to see. It doesn't feel like anyone's got a good idea of how to like tell this, like to do Superman in an hour and a half to 3 hours in movie time. It just doesn't seem like the recipe has been found to do that and make that work.
Well, it has before, but not in our lifetime.
Yeah. I think there could be a time to bring it back. I just don't know if we're there yet. So, I would say don't do another Superman movie. Don't force it. It's fine to just live on TV. And if you think you got the secret formula, then go for it. But I'm not gonna plan to see it necessarily. So,
although I say I'm over a Superman movie because I'd rather let's just focus on Superman and Lois. That's great. But just thinking about it, if they announce Superman directed by either Sam Raimi or the Russo brothers, that would get me hyped.
Oh yeah.
Especially because, like, honestly, combine Spider-Man, Captain America, that's Superman.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Do you have a Batman comic that you haven't read yet, but you really want to?
You asked this question for me to say year one.
Oh, yes.
No, I will say The Long Halloween is actually my most want to read. I just feel like I want to read year one first.
Yeah, Long Halloween is very much a sequel to year one.
Yeah.
And then
I should.
Then after that, you should read Dark Victory.
Yeah, sure. Well, let's take it one or two steps at a time.
One step at a time.
Yeah.
So for me, I don't know why. I've thought about this title recently. I know nothing about it except for the cover and the title. So the cover is like Batman like uncovering a manhole, and just the title. The title gets me excited, especially because of what's been going on with Superman and Lois. It's Batman the Cult.
Oh yeah, that is a cool title.
Yes, so I'd want to see that. Other one is one that this Batman movie reportedly inspired, Batman Ego, which I do have. I haven't read it yet because I wanted to wait till after the movie. So,
oh yeah, that was another one that was that the Batman took a lot from, right?
Yeah, I don't know what it took from because I haven't read it, but
yeah, interesting.
All right, I guess we talked a little bit about this earlier, but where's Robert Pattinson ranked for you? For me, he's a middle one. He is like Adam West, Ian Glenn from Titans, George Clooney.
Yeah.
Definitely above Christian Bale, but he didn't get in that top three of Keaton, Kilmer, Affleck. So where does Pattinson... I mean, you talked a little bit about it. You haven't thought about it that much. So where is he? Is he a high, medium, or bottom?
He is top three for me. I would say it's Keaton, Kilmer, Pattinson. Truly.
Okay.
And that has a lot to do with obviously just Batman, his Batman. Like I mean that's an obvious statement from what we've talked about, but like yeah, I would say it's top three.
Yes. So you would agree with me that whenever someone freaks out about Batman casting, it's a good sign.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah. Keaton, Heath Ledger was Joker, but still a Batman movie. Affleck and Pattinson. Whenever people freak out.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, that wasn't the right one. Okay. I don't know. Again, we'll just throw a little Superman in here. Just sprinkle in. This will be our last Superman before we get to our two last Batman rabbit holes. You've seen now in your life, I know for a fact, you've seen 4 Superman actors.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen Brandon Routh, Henry Cavill, Tom Welling, and Tyler Hoechlin.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can think off the top of your head, which one is your favorite?
Obviously, like, I liked me some Smallville back in the day. My memory of it, like, it feels like, maybe I'm not, because I did not see that deep into it. Maybe I'm not getting as much of a feel of Superman, but it's a great show. Because of that, I would probably say Tyler Hoechlin.
Oh, yes. So,
for my little
me,
exposure.
Yeah, so for me, it is a three-way tie. Like, I can't choose, like, every other day it can be a different choice. Like, for me, it's a tie between Christopher Reeve, Tom Welling, and Tyler Hoechlin. All right. I keep on opening the wrong one. There we go. All right. This might be another struggle one for you, but I know we can get the last one. The last one will be good for you.
Okay.
What is a Batman story you would like to see adapted into a live-action film?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously know a lot of the premises of Batman stories, and so like the I think the problem is probably that from what I know, I would have said The Long Halloween, but we kind of got
now.
Yeah. The only other thing, like, there's that one lodged deep in my memory, that like short Two-Face series that, like, I can't even remember what the gist of it was, but I obviously liked it at the time, so maybe there's something there.
Yes. So for me, I have two. Ironically, both deal with the aftermath of the death of Jason Todd, who was the second Robin. One is A Lonely Place of Dying, which is where after the death of Jason Todd, Batman is going a little off the deep end, and Tim Drake is the one who kind of finds Dick Grayson and tells him, like, you need to come back, because he is such a detective himself. He finds out Dick is the old Robin and Bruce is Batman. He goes to him and is like, you need to come back to Gotham because Batman needs a Robin. And it's really about, like, kind of like the aftermath of the death of a family member of the Bat family, which is not something that Bruce has usually had to go through, but it's about, it really is kind of like why Batman needs a Robin. And I remember reading it a few years ago and just being like, this is one of the best Batman comics I've ever read. The other is one that is already one of the best Batman movies ever made, but in an animated form. It is Batman Under the Red Hood. That is such a great story. I don't know if we'll ever get to a place where they can do it, because you'd have to really tell the audience, all right, Robin, Burt Ward, Chris O'Donnell, they go off and become Nightwing, and then Jason Todd takes over and he gets murdered by the Joker, and then he comes back. But that is one I would love to see adapted into a feature film, but I think we're a little bit ways from that.
Yeah, I guess it's a lot to establish.
Yes. All right. I have this question for you. This will be the last one of our Batman special.
Awesome.
Rank what you would want. There are 4 options, and you rank what you'd want.
Okay.
And the options are a Batman 5 in the Nolan Schumacher series, a Christopher Nolan Batman 4, a Ben Affleck solo Batman movie, or the Batman 2. So you can rank. You have the option to choose any of them.
What was this? Can you say them again?
There's the 5th Burton Schumacher Batman movie. There's the 4th Christopher Nolan Batman movie, a solo Ben Affleck Batman movie, or Matt Reeves' second Batman movie.
Okay. I mean, we're gonna just have to agree to disagree on this. My number one is gonna have to be second Reeves Batman movie.
Okay.
It just deserves more than just one. You know,
I disagree, but okay.
Yeah.
I didn't think it deserved a first one, but okay.
And yeah, number two would be a fifth Burton.
Yeah, because Joel is no longer here.
Yeah, I should have said Burton Schumacher for the credit, but yes, it would be
that
a Burton.
original series.
Mm-hmm. Then I would do solo Ben Affleck. That's something I wanted to see. I like Ben Affleck as Batman. And I totally get the wish for maybe instead having his version of that with him starring in it. That's an appealing idea. It's just not my number one. The last would be Nolan. In theory, it would be awesome because, like, you know, maybe we could get something that feels more like the sequel to The Dark Knight. Like, maybe there's lightning in a bottle again. But, you know, I don't trust that necessarily because we'd have to be leading off from The Dark Knight Rises.
Yes, unless you had Flash undo The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah. Like a fourth movie, like it's Batman.
Unless you
2.5.
totally Rise of Skywalker it and pretend that the previous one didn't happen.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my fourth.
Yes. So my ranking would be number one would be a fifth film in the Burton Schumacher series. Number two would be the Ben Affleck solo Batman movie. Number three would be the second Matt Reeves Batman movie. And number four in last place would be a fourth Christopher Nolan Batman movie. And I say that. Why did I save that one for last? Because in a way, if you think about it, our top three are actually going to happen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We live in that timeline where they're happening.
That
or
actually
at least being a scene.
That is totally true. That's why part of me, it did feel cheap to put, I mean, it felt a little cheap to put the Reeves one first because I'm like, if I get to wish, I mean, this one is already happening, but you're right that they all three are happening. So
yes. So we'll go to our final thoughts. I will go with mine first so you can end it more positively.
Okay.
All right. Despite doing a great job of adapting the Batman character, I felt the movie was very poorly executed. However, I am hopeful that Reeves will learn from the mistakes he made on this one and improve in the sequel. And I strongly believe the next Batman movie is going to be an adaptation of No Man's Land. And if that's what he's going for, I'm rooting for him. Like, for me, this didn't kill the franchise like Man of Steel or Spider-Man Homecoming. Like, there's enough, like, I'll be honest, this Tuesday the Blu-ray comes out, I'll get it. You know, whenever I do my Batman Summer July-a-thon, I'll watch it. But it's like Pam when she's talking about going to the hospital. I'll get there. Yeah. And if I don't get there, I don't get there.
Yeah.
But you know, it's not offensive. Like, there is some good stuff in there. I really hope that it improves in the sequel. So there we go with my final thoughts for the Batman.
All right, my final thoughts. Yeah, despite a couple of major, just big head scratcher like plot moments and like confusing like waste of time sort of moments where that kind of feel like there are moments where it's just like, if I feel like you had to have known you had something really, really special, and if you just would have massaged it a little bit more to work out some of these clearly imperfect parts of the plot, and that just keep it from being a perfect movie. Despite that, I still overall think it was really great because these were ultimately smaller moments that were somewhat ignorable in the grand scheme of what I think was to repeat what I said at the beginning, an excellent example of world building and the use of film as a visual art, with tons of mystery and atmosphere and time to let things breathe. It's honestly, I'll close it by saying this, and I think this is one of the reasons why I rewatched it again. It could end up being something close to a comfort movie for me, because it's just, it knows what it is. It's got its specific feeling, and you can just kind of put it on and just be along for the ride and be taken to this rainy place that you don't want to be in, of course, but you do want to watch it because there's something darkly beautiful about it. And that's my thoughts on the Batman.
Yeah. So I get real quick, because I did just think of this.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to rank the Batman movies, this would be my second least favorite. Like, I'd put it goes Batman versus Superman, then the Batman, then all the way down to the bowels of hell, or this is the Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
So I guess, where would you rank it in, like, I guess you don't have to go through a whole list of movies, but where right now is it sitting for you? I guess,
funny
where would you put it near in terms of levels?
It's funny because it could be opposite, because it could be my second favorite.
Oh, wow.
And I think the only thing keeping me from calling it my favorite, because like there are definitely some there's a lot of similarity to the Dark Knight in terms of the reasons why I like it, but I think that it's been a little while since I've seen the Dark Knight, but I feel like it's undeniable that I don't have those same grievances with the Dark Knight that I do have with the Batman. The feel of it, the version of Gotham, possibly even the version of Batman, I do think is better in the Batman. But I just there are just these lingering threads that make me feel like I would have to put the Dark Knight at the top. But in terms of like what I want in a Batman movie, and like the fact that it's almost tough to rank it as a Batman movie because of what I like it for, it has more in common with other movies. But in terms of like, if I were to rank them by stars and then order them, I think it would be number 2. And there's another poop joke to end it out.
Oh, Huck!
You think
so
it's number you think it's number 2, and I think it's number 2, as in the second best.
That is crazy.
That is
what happens.
I'm struggling to not say that this is the best, because I really am excited about it. It's just, I think it's just a taste. Like, obviously, I don't have quite as much attachment to the character, and like it's the things that it might not necessarily do justice for being a Batman movie. I just think it does injustice for being, I'm using the word justice a lot, for just being a movie. I mean, again, a lot of things we talked about, I think it's a taste thing where I'm okay with narratives not being strong in favor of other things in the movie.
Yeah, like for me, this is a great Batman adaptation. I just think it's a bad movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just one of, like, messy plots and stuff never bother me. It's just not the point of a movie to me. So, yeah, I think that there's so much that it does so well. And that's kind of what I'm basing it on.
All right, guys, so there we go with our special of the Batman. You know, back when we started this show, 5 years ago, I never thought we were going to do a special on this movie because I never thought it was actually going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, back when we started this show, we were told Ben Affleck was going to star in it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's been a while, but yet we finally got there 5 years later. It took a long, long time for a very long movie. But there we go. And guys, as we wrap this up, always remember, because, Gotham City is a very tall place. Very high buildings everywhere. You never know what could happen. And one day you could just be walking, trip, and fall out a window. And you're falling and falling and falling. And you're realizing, why is Batman not coming? Because you haven't just fallen past Gotham City. You've fallen into that rabbit hole, and you're going to keep falling down that rabbit hole.